Most people think underwriting is the big spreadsheet exercise. Three tabs open, 10 assumptions, sensitivity analysis, IRR toggles, all of that jazz. That's not how I do it. If a deal doesn't survive within 15 minutes, it doesn't deserve 2 hours. I've wasted time before, gang. I've fallen in love with deals. I've built the model out perfectly, only to realize the bones were wrong from the beginning. Mistakes were happening. So today I want to share with you how you can be looking at deals a little bit quicker so that you don't waste all the time that I have wasted in the past. So you're not building a full model, okay? You're not doing the full underwriting here. You're only answering one question. Is this deal that I'm currently looking at worth a deeper dive? In the first 15 minutes, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for reasons to kill the deal. And this is what a really good mentor used to do to us as mentees. He would look at a deal and try to kill it. And he was always successful because deals die super easy in this game. And it's actually very important, right? So every 100 deals that you look at, you might get one. So think about that. If somebody's going in there trying to kill your deals, it's for a good reason because 99 out of every 100 deals sucks. The first thing that I look at is the purchase price. I take the purchase price and then I look at it per door. 10 units at $1 million purchase price is $100,000 a door. I take that number and I think, well, is this comparable to what is trading in the market? Will it appraise at that? Is this a 1920s construction versus a 2000 construction? And this approach takes time to acquire the skills at because you have to learn rules of thumb and all that stuff. So right now, I know that if I'm buying a 10-unit building for $100K a door, I automatically think it's a decent deal only because I know the valuations today. So anywhere around 100K a door is where things are trading right now down in Florida. And I'm talking about C-class properties, even some B, but B is going to be a little bit more closer to 110, 120 a door. C-class is going to be anywhere from 80 to 100 a door, depending on other factors, obviously. So number one is I look at the price per door. Is that comparable to what I've seen? Yes or no? Then number two is I do the 1% rule, which doesn't really take effect anymore, but I still call it the 1% rule. So to do the 1% rule my way, I take the average effective rent. Let's say it's $1,000 a unit that they're getting at this 10-unit complex. I divide that by the purchase price per unit. Let's say it's $100,000. That's 1%. So I know automatically that I'm within range. But today, it doesn't really make that much sense because expenses are a little higher than they've historically been. And the debt is a bit higher than it was when I first started looking at deals. So now it's more like 80%. So typically, if rents are about $1,000, I know that I'm going to have to pay about 80K per unit. And it's just something that I know. So if I look at an OM and they're saying, okay, $1 million purchase price, 10 units, 1980s or 90s build, okay, I'm in range here. And they're getting $1,000 a unit in rent, I am within range. So I'm not even opening up a spreadsheet yet. And number three, the expense ratio. We want to weed out any nonsense right away. So when I open up the OM and I see the expense ratio at 35% on a C-class property in today's market, I don't get excited about it. I assume that it's going to be about 50%. Instead of looking at the OM to find the expense ratio, what I do is simple. I either take the rent roll or the T12, right? And I get the income for the year, the gross income for the year. I divide that by 2. And then I divide that by about a 7 or an 8% cap rate. That's where I'm looking to buy today at a 50% expense ratio. So let's take the same example of the 10 unit. Here we go. Let's say 1,000 per month in rent times 10 times 12 months. That is $120,000 in gross rent per year. Okay, so they're getting $120,000 in gross rent per year. Let's just say I divide that by 2 equals $60,000. Pretty simple math. Now I divide that by, I want to be conservative, an 8% cap rate divided by 0.08. Let's see. We now have an offer price of $750,000. And this is what I'm saying. I can typically get a vibe right away. Even if they're asking for $1 million, this deal is worth looking into because they are realistic. If they were asking 1.3, 1.5, it would not be realistic. But I'm within range. If I'm at 75% of asking price, right, $750,000 for $1 million purchase price, I think that it's worth a deeper dive. Now, back to the expense ratio. A lot of broker packages will claim 35% expense ratio. And again, it's not impossible to achieve that, but we today, this day and age, and on a C-class property is highly unlikely. There's insurance costs, which doubled at one point. It is going back down now. Turn costs are about $2,000, $3,000 sometimes, and you have to do about half the units a year in that. Trash, landscaping, pest control, repairs and maintenance, everything's going up. And on top of that, occupancy is dropping a little bit. So we really have to be careful about how we are projecting our expense ratio. And it's going to be anywhere from 45 to 55%. So if you want to be somewhat conservative, take the gross annual rent, divide that by 2, divide that by 0.08, and that will get you in range of where you should land when you make your actual offer. Number 4, the other thing that I look at is how much capital I'm going to need to bring to the table. Many of us have this fantasy of buying giant apartment complexes, 100 units, 100 doors, 250 unit apartment complexes, when in reality, we should be focused on something that we're a little bit more comfortable closing on. And I brought this to my multifamily machine cohort recently to just show them what the actual capital raise is going to look like on a deal. And typically, the capital raise is going to be 50 or 60% of the purchase price. Imagine that. Are you sure you can handle $1 million purchase if you have to bring $500,000 or $600,000 to the table? It might not be worth the energy involved in that, and you might not have the resources or the ability or the capability to close on something like that. So it's something you need to consider as well. So when I look at a property, let's say this 10-unit property, I automatically look at the purchase price and the price per door. Is that jiving with what I've seen trade recently in the market? Based on the vintage and based on the rule of thumb that I have seen trading in the C or B class space or whatever this property is that I'm looking at, then I take my 1% rule into consideration. If I'm buying at $100,000 a door, rent needs to at least be $1,000 a unit in order for it to meet my 1% rule. But remember that I'm really looking at a 1.25% rule today. If they're getting $1,000 in rent per unit, I'm typically going to be offering about $80,000 today because expenses are higher, occupancy is down, and the interest rates are up. And number 3, I look at the expense ratio. And I try to do my valuation based on a 50% expense ratio on today's gross collected rents. So it's more beneficial to use the T12 for that number rather than today's rent roll, because today's rent roll could be a bit inflated. They might be at 100% occupied with top rents today, and they might not have been 4, 5, 6, 8 months ago. Okay. So it's important to look at the T12 to get that number. The gross rents, divide that number by 2, and then divide that number by 0.08 at an 8% cap rate or whatever you're comfortable with, and you're going to get a basic purchase price. So again, if I was looking at a property, a 10-unit property, $100,000 a door, $1 million purchase price, and they're getting $1,000 in rents, I am automatically somewhat interested, because based on those markers that I just discussed with you, it makes sense for me to do a deeper dive into this property to see if I should pop in my offer. And typically I will. So at $1 million purchase price, $1,000 in rent per unit per year at an 8% cap rate, that was getting me to about a $750,000 offer price. And then I take into account how much capital I'm going to need to raise. That's somewhere around 375, 400,000 or so, given the capex, which we don't know yet. Am I comfortable doing that? Well, yes, if I love this property. So this particular property that I just invented out of thin air would be worth a deeper dive. And again, I didn't even open up a spreadsheet to do this. And this is what you can do as well. Once you get the reps in, once you understand the rules of thumb and how things are trading in your particular market, this is something that you should do too. So guys and gals and people out there in the great wide world looking for multifamily apartment buildings, get out there, keep looking at every single deal, but you don't have to go crazy deep on every single deal that you underwrite, because remember, we are all involved in the race to 100. Because every 100 deals that we look at, we might land one. So if you want a deal this year, it's all a matter of how quickly you can look at 100 deals and pass or go deeper on them. And once you start your underwriting process, I highly recommend you have a professional deal analyzer like mine, the Multifamily Deal Blade. Go to my store right now, my Stand store, and find the Multifamily Deal Blade. It's only $50. Or if you want a little bit more, you can buy my Buy Buildings, Build Empires full course where I teach you everything you need to know about buying multifamily, and you get the deal analyzer for free. And if you need more than that and you want some hand holding, you can join my multifamily machine. Cohort number 2 is starting soon. Cohort number 1 was insane. People are getting crazy value from it. So if you join my multifamily machine, you get my Buy Buildings, Build Empires full course. You get the 8-week program for the multifamily machine, which is group coaching with me and more. And you get the Multifamily Deal Blade, the deal analyzer, which is also included with the Buy Buildings, Build Empires package and the multifamily machine. So that is the top tier that I sell on my Stand store. So go right now to my Stand store, stand.store/buy buildings, and find the product that is right for you.